Hi, I'm Rick Rheins, Senior Rabbi at Temple Sinai in Denver, Colorado. This week's Torah portion is Behaalot'cha from chapters 8 through 12 of the book of Numbers. The Torah portion has so much in it. I want to focus on one little lesson that seems to contradict one of the highly valued parts of modernity, and that is a, a plea not to always engage in multitasking. What's wrong with multitasking? We highly value it because it's the height of efficiency. And yet, those of you who are studying the Daf Yomi know that we're currently in Tractate Chulin, and in chapter 32 of Chulin, the Babylonian Talmud, it has a very interesting line at the very beginning of it that says that if you are having the ritual slaughter of the para aduma, the red heifer, which is a part of the purification rite that was essential in the days of the temple, if you are having the shochet, having the ritual slaughter of the red heifer, the para aduma, and with the same stroke of slaughtering the red heifer, he also slaughters another animal or slaughters or cuts anything else. Now, on one hand, you might say, well, see, with one stroke, he is slaughtering not one animal, but two, so that should be applauded. He's efficient and helping the whole community. And yet, there's a limit to efficiency because, on one hand, multitasking is, of course, helping us to achieve more than one thing at the same time. On the other hand, it is helping us lose focus. We are distracted. We are thinking about many different things at the same time, as opposed to just focusing on the very important task at hand, giving someone, something, our full attention. And so the passage in Chulin in this Babylonian Talmud says this is something you should avoid doing, especially when it comes to the para adma. Focus exactly on the task at hand, have full concentration. So what does this have to do with the Torah portion, Behaalot'cha? Well, I'm glad you asked. In chapter 9 of this week's Torah portion, there's a line that says, if for whatever reason you missed the first Passover, and it gives the reasons. What if, for instance, you had ritual impurity? You couldn't come to Jerusalem for the Passover festival because you had come into contact with something that had died, and therefore you were ritually impure. You had to wait, and you couldn't come in time. Or it says, "V'derech rechoka," if you are on a long journey and that journey took you too far away from, of course, being in Jerusalem at the right time. If that's the case, then instead of having the Passover ritual on the evening of the 14th day of Nisan, you could do it 1 month later on the 14th, the evening of the 14th, as it became the 15th of Iyar. So instead of doing it on the first month, the Passover, you do it on the second month, which is the month of Iyar. So the Jerusalem Talmud, we're bringing all these Talmuds, right? The Jerusalem Talmud in Pesach, chapter 9 and the second Mishnah, said, what does it mean that he was v'derech rechoka, that he was on a long journey? Does that mean that he was so far out of town he couldn't come to Jerusalem? Okay. Or was it that he wasn't fully prepared on the 14th of Nisan? They gave all kinds of explanations. Maybe he had bad feet, or he couldn't find a horse, or whatever. So he couldn't focus because he had all these other distractions. He couldn't focus on the 14th day of Nisan, but a month later, he was in that right frame of mind. So the Talmud, based on this week's Torah portion of Behaalot'cha, says if you are that distracted, if you are rechoka, too far away, if there's some personal ritual, either impurity or that you're so upset that you can't focus on the Passover, then it's best to wait a month. And I wanted to bring that up as uh, um, as a as a value that is all too often overlooked in this era in which we have the computer screens and our telephone or our smartphone, and I'm juggling and writing and thinking and preparing for so many different things at the same time, and you applaud yourself. Oh, look how efficient I was. And yet, at some point, when you're with that person that you need to be with, at some point when you're on that task that needs all of you there, totally focused, total kavanah, total attention, then you don't want the distraction. You don't want the multitasking. I propose that this week's Torah portion, that one little line in chapter 9 that says, if that person is not present, and the present is rechokah, that he's distant, not just necessarily a physical distance, but an emotional distance, a spiritual distance, then that person should not be required to fulfill that ritual. Rather, we should all come to our gatherings and our interactions with one another with a focus, not to multitask, but to look at each other in the eye and to bring my heart, to bring my full being to be present, not to multitask, but for this person to know that when I'm engaging them, I'm all there for them. At this moment, I'm theirs. May this Shabbat bring us a reminder to focus on one another, to focus on the tasks at hand. And yes, there's time for multitasking, but not always. Shabbat Shalom.